Hello, guys. A very, very good afternoon. It is the 26th of July 2025. So, this is about the dumping of nuclear waste, the disposal of nuclear waste in Northeastern Kenya. That is in Marsabit, Garissa, Wajir, and parts of Turkana. So, this is, what happened. In 1984, the Vice President of the United States of America, that is George W. Bush Sr., visited Kenya. So, he had an interest because he owns an oil and gas exploring company, and he decided to visit Kenya because he said that he wanted Kenya to grant the US permission to explore for oil in northeastern Kenya, oil and gas in northeastern Kenya. So what happened is that immediately after his arrival, the IMF granted Kenya about 1 billion US dollars in terms of loans. And at that time in Kenya, the president was the late Daniel Torotich Arap Moi. So Moi received Bush, and they discussed, and he granted them the permission to go and explore oil in northeastern Kenya. That is in Turkana, Wajir, Garissa, and even Marsabit. So the guy never wanted to explore for oil apparently, but US had, as a very, very sinister motive, and the motive was to bury or dispose of nuclear waste and specifically plutonium. So when they were given the permission, they went ahead and decided to dig huge holes, pretending that they were exploring for oil and gas. That is in Turkana, in Wajir South, in Garissa North, and in Marsabit. So what happened is that they, imported or moved using their own, ships, a lot of, nuclear waste, and they decided that they got a place to dump because they were given the permission by the president at that time. So what happened is that that waste was dumped in places in Wajir South, in other places in Garissa, in northern part of Garissa, in Marsabit, and even in Turkana. So after that, the US decided that they reported back to the Kenyan government that they couldn't find, oil and gas that they were looking for, and they decided that the holes they were digging, they decided that they should just bury, and they buried without the knowledge of the president at the time. But the president knew that he gave them the permission to just go and drill for oil and gas. So we don't know if he knew about the disposal of that waste. So what happened is that about last month, the two leaders you see here appeared before a departmental committee. These are two very important leaders from Northeastern Kenya. One is Governor Nadif Jama of Garissa County, and one is former Al Jazeera correspondent and now currently Wajir South Member of Parliament, Mohamed Adow. So they appeared before the Environment and Mining Committee, a departmental committee of the Republic of Kenya that sits at the Parliament of the Republic of Kenya, sorry. And what happened is that Nadif testified that in between 2023 and 2025, that is 2 years alone, Garissa, they have diagnosed about 3,000 people with throat cancer. You can just imagine. So you will remember also Mohaji Chopevu one time did an investigative story about this waste that has been dumped in Marsabit. And in Marsabit, in that investigative story, you will realize that entire communities were wiped out. A lot of people died of cancer. Even their animals were wiped out. The reason is this: uh, it seems that the plutonium they buried on the ground, reached the water table because the communities that live in these places are mostly pastoralists. The communities that live in Wajir South, in Garissa North, and in Marsabit, and even in Turkana are pastoralists, and they depend on groundwater. So what happened is that they drill boreholes, to drink water from the ground. So it seems the plutonium and the waste they buried has reached the water table. It has reached the water table and contaminated the water in the ground. So even the animals are dying, forget about people. And in Garissa alone, about 3,000 people in the last 2 years have been diagnosed with throat cancer and other forms of cancer. And they're coming specifically from that area where the waste was, disposed of or buried by the United States of America. So the problem is this. Uh, the US looks for very, very weak leaders, people who are dictators, and people who want to cling on to power. So they assure them that they will protect them and keep them in power if they grant them the permission to do whatever they want. So it seems when Bush was visiting Kenya, he was asking basically Moi for him to protect him he should grant him the permission to do whatever he wants in Northeastern Kenya. And this is what happened. US came, they brought a lot of nuclear waste in form of, plutonium, and they decided to bury it in, Northeastern Kenya, where people mostly at that time were not, very well educated. They were not aware of their rights. They were not even aware what was happening. They just saw, a huge holes being dug. And in those huge holes, they were, cordoned off by the military of Kenya and the police of Kenya. So even people could not, peep and, look through what was happening. And what happened is that they buried plutonium there. And that plutonium now, 40 years later, it seems it has reached the water table, and it is affecting the people who live in that area. So what this means is that the people who live in that vast area need to be, relocated from there or even compensated. So if will Kenya, be able to compensate? So when these two leaders appeared before the Departmental Committee on Environment and Mining, what they wanted is for these people who live there, basically live in Wajir South, and in Garissa and in Marsabit and in Turkana, to be compensated by the government of Kenya. Not only by the government of Kenya, but also the US government should be held responsible and compensate the people who live here. Because what happens is that our people depend on water underground, and they drill for, they drill boreholes for them to get water from underground. So it seems the plutonium that was buried here has reached the water table, and it is affecting now people, and it has, started showing now. It has started showing after 40 years. What Nadif said is that about 3,000 people in the last 2 years alone from Garissa, and specifically from that area in Garissa near Wajir South, have been diagnosed with throat cancer, which means they have drank that water that contains nuclear waste, specifically plutonium. So this is a very serious thing. It is something that was investigated before by Muhammad Ali, and but Muhammad Ali specifically, Jichopev investigated the incident in Marsabit, because in Marsabit it even got worse, that a huge swaths of land were emptied by people. People decided to move from there because they realized that even when their animals drink this water, their animals die. Immediately, their animals die. And the people, become very, very much affected. They cannot even eat and drink because it's, the signs, start showing from the throat down into the stomach. So that is that. Cheers.